everyone! Are you ready for some more Hobbit fun? Again, thank you so much to all of my Patreon supporters. This is not possible, any of this is not possible without you. So, let's begin. "What is all this uproar in the forest tonight?" said the Lord of the Eagles. He was sitting, black in the moonlight, on top of a lonely pinnacle of rock on the eastern edge of the mountains. "I hear wolves' voices, and the goblins at mischief in the woods." He swept up into the air, and immediately 2 of his guards from the rock at either hand leapt up to follow him. They circled up into the sky, looked down in the ring of the wargs, a tiny spot far, far below. But eagles have keen eyes and can see things at a great distance. The Lord of the Eagles of the Misty Mountains had eyes that could look at the sun unblinking, could see a rabbit moving on the ground a mile below even the moonlight. So though he could not see the people in the trees, he could make out the commotion among the wolves and see the tiny flashes of fire and hear the howling and yelping that came up faint from far beneath him. Also, he could see the glint of the moon on goblin spears and helmets as long lines of wicked folk crept down the hillside from their gate and wound into the woods. Eagles are not kindly birds. Some are cowardly and cruel, but the ancient race of the northern mountains were the greatest of all birds. They were proud and strong and noble-hearted. They did not love goblins or fear them. When they took any notice of them at all, which was seldom, for they did not eat such creatures, they swooped down on them and drove them shrieking back into their caves, and stopped whatever wickedness they were doing. The goblins hated the Eagles and feared them, but they could not reach their lofty seats or drive them from the mountains. Tonight the Lord of the Eagles was filled with curiosity to know what was afoot. So he summoned many other eagles to him, and they flew away from the mountains, and slowly circling ever round and round, they came down, down, towards the ring of the wolves and the meeting place of the goblins. A very good thing, too. Dreadful things had been going on down there. The wolves that had caught fire and fled into the forest had set it alight in several places. It was high summer, and on this eastern side of the mountains there had been little rain for some time. Yellowing bracken, fallen branches, deep-piled pine needles, and here and there dead trees were soon in flames. All round the clearing of the wargs fire was leaping. But the wolf guards did not leave the trees. Maddened and angry they were, leaping and howling round the trunks, and cursing the dwarves in their horrible language, with their tongues hanging out, and their eyes shining as red and fierce as the flames. Then suddenly goblins came running up yelling. They thought a battle with the woodmen was going on, but they soon learned what had really happened. Some of them actually sat down and laughed. Others waved their spears and clashed their shafts against their shields. Goblins are not afraid of fire, and they soon had a plan which seemed to them most amusing. Some got all the wolves together in a pack. Some stacked fern and brushwood around the tree trunks. Others rushed round and stamped and beat and stamped until nearly all the flames were put out. But they did not put out the fire nearest to the trees where the dwarves were. That fire they fed with leaves and dead branches and bracken. Soon they had a ring of smoke and flame all around the dwarves, a ring which they kept from spreading outwards, but closed slowly in, till the running fire was licking the fuel piled under the trees. Smoke was in Bilbo's eyes. He could feel the heat of the flames, and through the reek he could see goblins dancing round in a circle like people around a midsummer bonfire. Outside the ring of dancing warriors with spears and axes stood the wolves at a respectful distance, watching and waiting. He could hear the goblins beginning a horrible song. 15 birds in 5 fir trees, their feathers were fanned in a fiery breeze. But funny little birds, they had no wings. Oh, what shall we do with these funny little things? Roast 'em alive or stew 'em in a pot. fry 'em, boil 'em, and eat them hot." Then they stopped and shouted, "Fly away, little birds, fly away if you can. Come down, little birds, or you will get roasted in your nests. Sing, little birds, why won't you sing?" "Go away, little boys," shouted Gandalf in answer. "It isn't bird nesting time, and naughty little boys that play with fire get punished." He said it to make them angry, and to show them he was not frightened of them, though of course he was, wizard though he was. But they took no notice and went on singing, "Burn, burn, tree and fern, shrivel and scorch a fizzling torch, to light the night for our delight, yah-hey! Bake and toast 'em, fry and roast 'em, till beards blaze and eyes glaze, till hair smells and skins crack, fat melts and bones black. In cinders lie beneath the sky, so dwarfs shall die, and light the night for our delight, yah-hey! Yah-hally-hey! Yah-ho!" And with that yah-ho, the flames under Gandalf's tree were lit. In a moment it spread to the others. The bark caught fire, the lower branches cracked. Then Gandalf climbed to the top of his tree. The sudden splendor flashed from his wand like lightning as he got ready to spring down from the high right among the spears of the goblins. That would have been the end of him, though he probably would have killed many of them as he came hurtling down like a thunderbolt. But he never leaped. Just at that moment, the Lord of the Eagles swept down from above, seized him in his talons, and was gone. There was a howl of anger and surprise from the goblins, loud cries the Lord of the Eagles, to whom Gandalf had now spoken. Back swept the great birds and were with him, and down they came like huge black shadows. The wolves yammered and gnashed their teeth. The goblins yelled and stamped with rage, and flung their heavy spears in the air in vain. Over them swooped the eagles. The dark rush of their beating wings smote them to the floor, or drove them far away. Their talons tore at goblin faces. Other birds flew to the treetops, seized the dwarves who were scrambling up as far as they dared go. Poor little Bilbo was nearly left behind again. He just managed to catch hold of Dory's leg. As Dory was bore off last of all, and up they went together above the tumult and the burning, Bilbo swinging in the air with his arms nearly breaking. Now far below, the goblins and the wolves were scattering far and wide in the woods. A few eagles were still circling and sweeping above the battleground. The flames above the trees sprang up suddenly up above the highest branches. They went up in a crackling fire. There was a sudden flurry of sparks and smoke. Bilbo had escaped only just in time. Soon the light of the burning was faint below, a red twinkle on the black floor, and they were high up in the sky, rising all the time in strong sweeping circles. Bilbo never forgot that flight. Clinging on Dory's ankles, he moaned, "My arms, my arms!" But Dory groaned, "My poor legs, my poor legs!" At the best of times, heights made Bilbo giddy. He used to turn queer if he looked over the edge of quite a little cliff, and he had never liked ladders, let alone trees, never having had to escape from wolves before. So you can imagine how his head swam now, when he looked down between his dangling toes and saw the dark lands opening up wide beneath him, touching here and there with the light of the moon on a hillside rock or a stream in the plains. The pale peaks of the mountains were coming nearer, moonlit spikes of rock sticking out from black shadows. Summer or not, it seemed very cold. He shut his eyes and wondered if he could hold on any longer. Then he imagined what would happen if he did not. He felt sick. The flight ended only just in time for him, for just before his arms gave way, he loosed Dory's ankles with a gasp and fell onto a rough platform of the Eagle's eyrie. There he lay without speaking, and his thoughts were a mixture of surprise at being saved from the fire and fear for lest he fall over the narrow place into the deep shadows on either side. He was feeling very queer indeed in his head by this time, after dreadful adventures of the last 3 days, with next to nothing to eat, and he found himself saying, "Now I know what a piece of bacon feels like when it's suddenly picked out of the pan on a fork and put back on the shelf." "No, you don't," he heard Dory answering, "because the bacon knows that it will get back in the pan sooner or later, and it is to be hoped we shan't. Also, eagles aren't forks." "Oh, no, not a bit like storks, forks, I mean," said Bilbo, sitting up and looking anxiously at the eagle who was perched close by. He wondered what other nonsense he had been saying, and if the eagle would think it rude. You ought not to be rude to an eagle when you are only the size of the Hobbit, and you are up in an eyrie at night. The eagle only sharpened his beak on a stone, and trimmed his feathers, and took no notice. Soon another eagle flew up. "The Lord of the Eagles bids you to bring your prisoners to the great shelf," he cried, and was off again. Then others seized Dory in his claws and flew away with him into the night, leaving Bilbo all alone. He had just strength to wonder what the messenger meant by prisoners, and began to think of being torn up for supper like a rabbit when his turn came. The eagle came back and seized him by the talons on the back of the coat and swooped off. This time he flew only a short way. Very soon Bilbo was laid down, trembling with fear, on a wide shelf on the rock on the mountainside. There was no path down to it save by flying, and no path down to it except by jumping off the precipice. There he found all the others sitting with their backs to the mountain wall, and the Lord of the Eagles was there, and he was speaking to Gandalf. If you want to see what the Lord of the Eagles says to Gandalf, we'll get to that in the next portion. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.